Where are you? But let me tell you something. God is not punishing you. He is preparing you. That silence is not rejection. It's separation. That loneliness is not abandonment. It's elevation. Because when God has chosen you, He will isolate you. You see, isolation is not a curse. It is a calling. And today I'm going to tell you 7 reasons why God isolates the chosen, reasons that few truly understand. Reason 1, 2 distractions. There comes a time in life when God begins to strip things away. The people you used to talk to every day suddenly stop calling. The opportunities that once flowed so easily start to dry up. The plans you made don't seem to work anymore, no matter how hard you try. And in those moments, it's easy to feel like you've been forgotten, like you're being punished. But I need you to understand something. This is not rejection. It's refinement. This isn't the rejection that you feel that you've been refinement. God is not taking things away from you to hurt you. He is removing distractions that are standing between you and your destiny. He sees what you cannot. He knows what's been slowing you down, what's been pulling you away from His voice, what's been feeding your fears instead of your faith. And when He chooses you for something greater, He will not allow you to be surrounded by things that are beneath your calling. Distractions come in many forms. Sometimes they look like toxic relationships. People who drain your energy, who plant seeds of doubt in your mind, who keep you tied to cycles of dysfunction. Other times, distractions come disguised as comfort. The kind of comfort that keeps you stagnant, that keeps you from stretching into the person God is calling you to be. It could be a job that pays well but kills your purpose, a habit that soothes you but slowly destroys you, a mindset that keeps you safe but stops you from growing. Whatever it is, when God isolates you, He is clearing the clutter. He is creating a space where you can finally hear Him clearly. Because let's be honest, when life is loud, God's voice becomes a whisper. When we are surrounded by too many voices, too many opinions, too much noise, we start to lose the ability to discern what is truly for us. We start to move based on what we see instead of what we believe. But when God begins to isolate you, the distractions fall away, and suddenly you are left with nothing but His voice. And that's where transformation begins. Think about Moses. Before he became the leader of a nation, he had to be removed from the palace. He had to spend years in the wilderness, away from the noise of Egypt, away from the distractions of his past. Why? Because God had to retrain his vision. He had to remove the influences that would have kept him from fulfilling his purpose. Think about Paul. Before he became one of the greatest apostles, he was struck blind for 3 days. He had to be cut off from everything he once knew so that he could see with spiritual eyes. Think about yourself. How many times has God removed something from your life and at the moment it felt painful? Maybe a relationship ended, maybe you lost a job, maybe doors you prayed for remained shut. But looking back, you realize it was all for your good. You realize that if that person had stayed, they would have poisoned your future. That if that opportunity had worked out, it would have taken you down a path that wasn't meant for you. That if you had gotten what you wanted when you wanted it, you would not have been prepared to handle it. Distractions don't always look like distractions. Sometimes they look like blessings. Sometimes they look like love. Sometimes they look like success. But anything that keeps you from hearing God clearly, anything that pulls you away from His presence is a distraction. And when God is calling you higher, He will not allow those distractions to remain. So what do you do when you find yourself in this season? When things start falling away, when people start walking away, when the familiar starts disappearing, you don't fight it. You don't chase after what God is trying to remove. You don't beg for things to go back to how they used to be. You trust Him. You lean in. You get quiet. Because in the silence, He speaks. In the stillness, He reveals. This is not the time to question His plan. It is the time to sharpen your focus. It is the time to prepare for what's next. Because when God removes distractions, It is never to leave you empty. It is to make room for something greater. And when he is done, when the isolation has completed its purpose, you will see that everything he removed was never meant to stay. Reason 2, to reveal who is really with you. There comes a moment in every chosen person's life when God begins to separate the real from the fake, the loyal from the opportunist, the temporary from the permanent. It doesn't happen when everything is going well. It doesn't happen when the blessings are overflowing. It happens in isolation. When God isolates you, one of the first things he does is remove the people who were never truly for you. You see, as long as life is comfortable, as long as you're giving, as long as you're winning, people will surround you. They will celebrate you. They will act like they are with you. But the moment you step into a season of separation, when you're not as available, when you don't have as much to offer, when you start changing, that's when you see who was really there for you and who was only there for what you could do for them. And that revelation is painful. Because sometimes it's the people you never expected, the ones you thought would stand by you, the ones you poured into, the ones you called family, friends, brothers, sisters. But when God is preparing you for something greater, he cannot allow you to carry dead weight. Look at Jesus. He had 12 disciples, but not all of them were truly for him. Judas was with him, but Judas wasn't for him. He ate at the same table, he walked in the same ministry, but when the pressure came, when it was time to be loyal, Judas sold him out for a handful of silver. Look at Job. He lost everything. His wealth, his family, his health. And what happened? His so-called friends didn't comfort him. They accused him. They said, you must have done something wrong for God to let this happen. They couldn't see the calling on his life. They couldn't understand the test he was going through. Look at Joseph. His own brothers sold him into slavery because they were jealous of what God had placed inside him. But guess what? If they hadn't betrayed him, he would have never reached the palace. God allows isolation to reveal the truth about who is really in your corner. Some people are attached to your current season, but they are not meant to go with you into the next one. They were fine with you as long as you stayed the same, as long as you played small, as long as you didn't outgrow them. But the moment you start stepping into your true calling, the moment you start elevating, they start to fall away. And you might be tempted to hold on, to chase after the people who left, to beg them to understand. But let me tell you, when God removes someone from your life, don't fight it. Don't try to drag people into a future they were never meant to be a part of. Not everyone is assigned to your destiny. Some people were only meant to be a lesson. Some were only meant to walk with you for a season. Some were sent as distractions, and God had to remove them before they could destroy what he is building in you. It's in isolation that you see who is still standing, who still checks on you when you have nothing to give, who still prays for you when you're struggling, who celebrates you not just when you're winning, but when you're working. And those are the ones you hold on to. Those are the ones who are meant to go with you into your next level. So if you feel like you're losing people in this season, if you're wondering why certain friendships or relationships are falling apart, trust that God is making room. He is protecting you from what you cannot see. He is preparing you for where you are going. Because when he reveals who is truly with you, he also reveals who never was. And that's not a loss, it's a blessing. Reason 3, to build your character. There is something about isolation that reveals the truth, not just about others, but about you. When God isolates you, he is not just removing distractions. He is not just exposing who is real and who is fake. He is doing something even deeper. He is building your character. Because let's be honest, you don't grow in comfort. You don't develop strength when everything is easy. You don't learn resilience when life always goes your way. Character is built in struggle. It is built in pain. It is built in those moments when you feel like giving up, but choose to keep going anyway. Think about the greatest leaders, the most powerful voices, the people who made history. None of them were shaped by comfort. They were shaped by adversity. They were refined by fire. And if God has chosen you for something greater, he will not allow you to remain weak. Realization is where he does his deepest work. Because when you're alone, when the noise fades, when you have nothing and no one to rely on, that's when your true character is revealed. Who are you when no one is watching? Who are you when there's no applause? Who are you when the rewards don't come immediately? It's easy to have faith when things are going well. It's easy to stay motivated when the blessings are flowing. But what happens when God removes the comfort? What happens when he takes you into a season of silence? That is when he starts to shape you into the person you need to be for where he is taking you. Look at David. Before he became king, before he was celebrated, before he was honored, he was alone in the fields tending sheep. Forgotten, overlooked. But that was where God built his heart. That was where he learned to fight. That was where he developed the strength to face Goliath. Look at Joseph. He had a dream of greatness, but before he reached the palace, he was thrown into a pit, betrayed, sold into slavery, falsely accused, imprisoned. But through every trial, his character was being built. He learned humility. He learned patience. He learned how to lead. Not when everything was perfect, but when everything was against him. Look at Jesus. Before he stepped into his full power, he was led into the wilderness alone. 40 days and 40 nights, no food, no comfort, nothing but his faith. It was in isolation that he was tested. It was in isolation that he overcame. And now look at yourself. You're in a season where things feel hard, where you're questioning, God, why is this happening? Why do I feel alone? Why am I struggling? But the truth is, God is preparing you. You cannot step into the next level without the character to sustain it. You cannot carry the weight of greatness if you are still easily broken. So he isolates you to strengthen you. In isolation, you learn discipline. In isolation, you learn patience. In isolation, you learn faith, the kind of faith that doesn't need proof, the kind of faith that doesn't waver when things don't go your way. Because when the time comes for you to step into your purpose, you won't have time to prepare. You'll have to be ready. So embrace this season. Embrace the struggle. Because when God isolates the chosen, he is not punishing them. He is forging them into something unstoppable. Reason 4, to teach you to depend on him all. There comes a time when God will strip everything away. Your comfort, your connections, your resources, until there is only him. It's not because he wants to see you struggle. It's not because he wants you to suffer. It's because he wants you to learn one of the greatest lessons of all. True dependence on him. As long as you have options, as long as you have a backup plan, as long as you can rely on people or things, your faith will never be fully tested. But when those things are gone, when the people you counted on walk away, when the doors you thought would open stay shut, when the plans you made fall apart, that is when you find out what your faith is really made of. Because faith is not trusting God when things make sense. Faith is trusting him when nothing makes sense. Look at Abraham. God told him to leave everything. His home, his family, his security, and step into the unknown. He had no map, no guarantee, no safety net. But he obeyed. And because he obeyed, he became the father of nations. Look at Elijah. In a time of drought and famine, when food was scarce, God told him to go to a widow who had nothing left but a handful of flour and a little oil. Logic said, this isn't enough. But faith said, God is enough. And because he trusted, the oil never ran out and the flour never ran dry. Look at Peter. He was in a boat in the middle of a storm, and Jesus told him to step out onto the water. That made no sense. Water doesn't hold weight. The waves were raging. But in that moment, Peter had a choice to depend on what he knew or to depend on who he knew. And as long as his eyes were on Jesus, he walked on what should have drowned him. Now, look at your own life. Maybe you're in a season where everything is uncertain, where the things you depended on have disappeared, where the people you relied on are nowhere to be found. And you're asking God, why? But the real question is, God, what are you trying to teach me? Because sometimes God has to take everything else away so you can see that he was always enough. Money will run out. People will fail you. Plans will change. But God is the only thing that never moves, never shifts, never changes. So when he isolates you, when he removes the distractions, when he takes away the crutches you've been leaning on, it's not because he's forgotten you. It's because he's preparing you to walk in faith like never before. You're not abandoned. You're not forgotten. You're being trained. Because when you reach the next level, when you step into your destiny, you won't be able to depend on people. You won't be able to depend on circumstances. You will have to depend on him. And once you learn that lesson, once you truly understand that God is all you need, he will become all you have. And that is when everything will change. Reason 5, to position you for something greater. There are moments in life when everything seems to shift. Doors that once swung wide open suddenly slam shut. People you thought would always be there start to disappear. The path that once seemed so clear is now covered in fog. And in that moment, you start to wonder, God, what is happening? But let me tell you something. God is not closing doors to hurt you. He is closing doors to position you. Because if you could see what he sees, you would understand that where you are now is not where you are meant to stay. And sometimes the only way to move you forward is to make staying where you are impossible. Think about Joseph. He had a dream greatness, a vision from God that one day he would lead. But before he could step into that promise, he had to be positioned. And how did God position him? Not through comfort, not through ease, but through isolation and hardship. He was thrown into a pit, sold into slavery, wrongfully imprisoned, and at every step it must have felt like God had abandoned him. But in reality, God was moving him. Every setback was actually a setup. Every rejection was actually redirection. And when the time was right, the same Joseph who was isolated, betrayed, and forgotten was positioned in the palace, second in command over all of Egypt. What if Joseph had never been thrown into the pit? What if he had never been sold? What if he had never been in prison? He would have never been positioned for the greatness God had planned for him. And the same is true for you. Some of the things you're going through right now, the disappointments, the delays, the loneliness, are not punishments. They are positioning. God is shifting you, removing the things that would have held you back, placing you in situations that will prepare you, leading you to the exact place where your purpose will be revealed. But here's the thing, you won't always understand it while it's happening. In the middle of the storm, it won't feel like positioning. It will feel like pain. It will feel like loss. It will feel like confusion. But trust this, God never isolates you without a reason. Think about Moses. He was raised in Pharaoh's palace, but before he could become the deliverer of Israel, he had to be isolated in the wilderness for 40 years. Why? Because God was positioning him. He was removing the old mindset, stripping away everything that wasn't necessary, preparing him to lead a nation. Think about David. He was anointed to be king, but before he could sit on the throne, he had to be positioned. He spent years in isolation, running from Saul, hiding in caves, feeling forgotten. But God wasn't delaying him, he was developing him. And now, think about yourself. You may not understand why things are shifting in your life right now. You may not see the purpose behind the pain, but trust me, God does. He knows exactly where you need to be, and he is making sure you get there. So stop trying to hold on to what he is removing. Stop fighting to stay in places that no longer serve you. Stop questioning why things aren't working the way you planned. God is positioning you for something greater. And when the time is right, you will look back and realize every step, every trial, every moment of isolation was leading you to something beyond what you could have ever imagined. Reason 6, to break you free from old limitations. Sometimes the greatest battle is not against the enemy, it's against your own mind. It's against the limits you've placed on yourself, the beliefs you've carried for years, the cycles you've been trapped in. And when God chooses you for something greater, he cannot allow you to stay small. But here's the truth. Growth is painful. Breaking free from old mindsets is uncomfortable. Stepping into something new means leaving behind what is familiar. And most people don't do it not because they aren't called, but because they aren't willing to let go of what's holding them back. So what does God do? He isolates you. Because as long as you are surrounded by the same voices, the same habits, the same environments that have kept you stuck, you will never change. As long as you are comfortable, you will never break free. So he pulls you away, not to punish you, but to transform you. Look at the Israelites. They had been slaves in Egypt for 400 years. God had called them out, destined them for the promised land. But even after they were free physically, they were still bound mentally. They still thought like slaves. They still doubted. They still looked back. So what did God do? He took them into the wilderness. He removed them from the place of bondage. He isolated them from everything they knew, because before he could take them into the land of promise, he had to break them free from the mindset of Egypt. Some of you are in that wilderness right now. You've been praying for a new season, for new opportunities, for breakthrough, but God knows that you cannot step into something new while holding on to the old. Old fears, old doubts, old insecurities, old ways of thinking that have kept you small. And yes, it's uncomfortable. Yes, it feels like you're losing. Yes, it feels like you're alone. But this isolation is your transformation. Think about Gideon. When God called him to lead, he didn't see himself as a warrior. He was hiding, doubting, thinking small. But God had to pull him out of that mindset before he could walk in his true calling. Think about Peter. Before he could become the rock of the early church, he had to be broken. He had to be stripped of his pride, his fear, his doubt. He had to go through moments of failure, moments of isolation, because God was preparing him for something bigger. And now think about yourself. What limits have you placed on your life? What old mindsets are keeping you stuck? What fears have been holding you back? God is not isolating you to hurt you. He is setting you free. Because you cannot take small thinking into a big destiny. You cannot take fear into a season of faith. You cannot take old chains into new territory. This season is not about breaking you. It's about remaking you. So let go. Stop resisting. Stop trying to hold on to what God is trying to remove. Because when this season is over, you will not be the same. You will be stronger. You will be bolder. You will be ready. And the limits that once held you back will hold you no more. Reason 7, to prepare you for the calling on your life. There is no calling without preparation, no destiny without discipline, no greatness without the process. And when God has a calling on your life, he does not send you unprepared. He does not push you into purpose without first making sure you are strong enough to carry it. Because the weight of your calling is heavy, and if you are not ready, it will crush you. That is why he isolates the chosen. Because in the quiet and the struggle and the moments when you feel alone, when it seems like nothing is happening, that is when God is preparing you. Look at Moses. Before he became the deliverer of Israel, before he stood before Pharaoh, before he led millions to freedom, he spent 40 years in the wilderness, alone, hidden, unknown. Why? Because God was preparing him, teaching him, strengthening him. If Moses had gone too soon, he would have failed. But by the time his moment came, he was ready. Look at David. He was anointed as king when he was just a shepherd boy. The oil was poured on his head. The calling was declared over his life. But did he go straight to the throne? No. He went back to the fields. He went back to the wilderness. He went through battles, betrayals, moments of isolation where he must have thought, God, did you forget about me? But God hadn't forgotten. He was preparing him. Look at Jesus, the Son of God, the greatest calling, the highest purpose. And yet, before he stepped into his ministry, before he healed the sick, before he preached to the multitudes, before he fulfilled his mission, he was led into the wilderness. 40 days, alone. No food, no comfort, no distractions, only God. Because before the miracles, before the impact, before the fulfillment of his calling, he had to be prepared. And now, look at yourself. You feel the call. You know there is something greater inside you. You know you were made for more. But right now, you're in a season of isolation. A season where it feels like nothing is moving. A season where doors are not opening as fast as you. Do not mistake the silence for absence. Do not mistake the waiting for wasting. God is not delaying you. He is developing you. He is teaching you how to be disciplined. He is refining your character. He is deepening your faith. He is removing everything in you that would have sabotaged your future. Because when you step into your calling, when you step into the thing you were born to do, there will be battles you have to fight, obstacles you have to overcome, storms you have to endure, and you have to be ready. So if you're feeling hidden, if you're feeling like no one sees you, if you're wondering why things are taking so long, trust the process. God isolates the chosen to prepare them, because when the time comes for you to step into your purpose, you won't just be called. You will be ready. So, if you are in a season of isolation, if you feel like God has pulled you away from the familiar, if doors are closing, if people are leaving, if everything around you seems to be shifting, understand this. You are not being abandoned. You are being chosen. God does not isolate those who have no purpose. He isolates the ones he is preparing for something greater. He removes distractions so you can focus.